So, and this is also a general finding in basically sports psychology literature, that being able to tolerate anxiety, being able to accept anxiety and discomfort in performance situations is something that's very beneficial for performance. And I have one example here from a penalty, not a shootout, that I think illustrates this principle really well. This is the Euro 2004, France versus England. The score is 1-1. France has the penalty or overtime. It's needless to say, a very important shot. Zidane is ready. Zidane will score his penalty, but pay close attention to the replay where you see what Zidane did in the seconds leading up to the penalty.
Zinedine Zidane, verdenseneren klar! Og sender Frankrike opp I 2-1! England kaster opp 2 ganger før han tar straffesparket og setter ballen iskald til høyre for David James. Altså, Zidane jo grasiøs til når han kaster opp.
You missed the Norwegian comments here. Zidane is gracious even when he throws up. But the point, of course, is that he performed even though he had a lot of bad feelings, coming possibly from nervousness, tension, anxiety, but also possibly from something he ate. We don't know that. But the point is, he had those feelings and still he performed. Now, what we see a lot of players do is the opposite. They have these feelings and then they're affected by that in a very negative way. And I'll come back to that right now when we speak about self-regulation. First, positive self-regulation or adaptive self-regulation. Again, Arsene Wenger. Lots of young players lose themselves in their dreams because they don't have a plan. The club's task is to help them realize the dream. The question is how to make this happen now, not tomorrow, this minute. His answer, full focus at each practice session. My question, how do you have full focus at each practice session? What do you focus on? Is it possible to have 1 hour of practice that's so effective that you get 1 month worth of practice out of it? What we've looked at, what we researched here is self-regulation of learning, and we looked at the following aspects. Planning. What's today's goal? What exactly will I get better at today? Self-monitoring. I constantly monitor how focused I am and whether I can do what I planned in practice. Evaluation after practice. Did I do what I planned? How focused was I? How can I do better next time? Reflection. What are my strengths, weaknesses? What must I work on to get better? In what way? And if you have this in a circle of effort and self-confidence, I want to be better, I can be better, we'll put down the necessary work, then we have a good self-regulation cycle. The data, these are the young Dutch players. We find that the internationals representing the Netherlands at national team level tend to score higher on all these aspects than the national players representing Dutch Premier League clubs, but not at the national team, and even higher than the grassroots players. So the difference is in the expected direction all over, significantly so for reflection and for effort. So we have reason to believe that self-regulation is one of the key factors that makes deliberate practice deliberate, that make focused quality practice focused and full of quality. In terms of self-regulation of performance, which is a slightly different aspect, we see a lot of players self-regulate like this. They turn away from the event. They don't want to look at the event. This is a typical escape behavior in terms of perception. Here's another famous example, Paul Ince in the 1996 World Cup. He got a lot of crap in the English media for this. And this is a fine way to deal with anxiety at the moment. A problem, of course, is if you always escape these feelings, what do you do when you at some point have to confront them? One interesting behavioral aspect in these shootouts is illustrated by Paul Ince again here. When you put the ball down on the penalty spot and you step down to prepare a penalty, you can either step back facing the goalkeeper, or you can do exactly like you saw the 2 players do, turn your back to the goalkeeper, like Paul Ince is doing right here.
Det England som på offensiven. Ince en tøffing fra Øst-London. Greier han dette presset? Nei, det gjør
find a slight performance difference, but not significant, between players who face the goalkeeper and players who turn their back towards the goalkeeper. The players who turn their back to the goalkeepers, they score about 5% less than the players who face the goalkeepers. What we do find is a big difference in terms of country. So how many players from the various countries turn their back to the goalkeepers as opposed to continuing to face the goalkeepers? And this is what the data looks like. So 57% of the English players, they turn their backs on the goalkeeper, which is interesting in itself. Only 5% of the Spanish players do the same. I suspect, also because Italy is down here, that this is also part of culture. That you will never find a Spanish player who will back down from a challenge. He will always have the matador approach to this situation. But still interesting. Another way to self-regulate is in terms of use of time. We saw that waiting time, if you wait longer, that's not good for performance, but that's time that you cannot control. How about time that you can control? For example, how quickly you put the ball down on the penalty spot and how quickly you react to the referee's whistle when you're ready and he gives you the signal, now you can go and shoot. Look at that particular part in Bosveld, the Dutch player from 2000. Look at the hurried body language that he has throughout this. So the referee blew his whistle and he instantly reacted to the whistle. And this is the relationship between reaction time and performance. And what we see is that players who react quickly, between 0 and 0.2 seconds, they score on only 57% of the shots. So they perform quite badly compared to the players who are able to stand there a little bit longer. And why do they do that? I think it can be because of quotes like this. Tim Gerrard, Jesus, I wish I was first up. Get it out of the way. The weight is killing me. I could hardly watch as Simao scored. I was ready. Elizondo, the referee, wasn't. Blow the whistle. Fucking get a move on. Why the wait? Jesus Christ, I was screaming inside. And you can almost feel it. And what you do is you just want to get away from this situation. You don't want to be there. And that's what they say. So many of these players who are missed at these moments. I just wanted it to be over. Chris Waddle, a famous miss from 1990. And Gareth Southgate, all I wanted was the ball, put it on the spot, get it over and done with. And let's look at Southgate, and again look at his body language in this situation and how quickly he responds to the referee. Which country do you think is the fastest in the world on penalties? England spends 0.28 seconds to react to the referee's whistle, which is significantly lower than most of these other countries. And it's interesting here also that you see England, Spain, Holland, and Italy are the 4 quickest countries. And as you may remember from the table in the beginning, they're also the 4 worst countries in terms of penalty shootout performance. So there is something there. And if you think 0.28 seconds is not so low, just to give you a comparison, when Usain Bolt won the Beijing gold on the 100-meter sprint in 2008, 0.17 seconds was his reaction time. So the English players are not down there with Usain Bolt, but it's still pretty quick, I would say. I have one Japanese player for you today, and maybe to the joy of the Japanese audience here, he's an example of a player who does exactly the opposite. Endo, from last summer's World Cup, is the player throughout history that has taken the longest time after the referee blown his whistle to start his approach to the shot. So he's the best example that I can find of good behavior in this particular situation. Look at this.
Portugal.
just standing and standing and standing, which is incredible. 4.5 seconds we clocked in, which is an amazing result. Okay, I will finish it off just some quick implications. How can we help players to perform better in situations with high pressure? I've gotten a lot of inspiration from fields like this. People working in hospitals, power plants, in the aviation industry. How do they deal with error? How do they deal with pressure? If they fail under pressure here, the consequences are much more serious than losing a game or a point. People lose their lives. So how do they do these things? They have, which I think is very interesting, a paradoxical perspective on errors. To avoid errors, you first have to embrace them. These high reliability organizations have the focus that they're going to discover small errors before they become big or before they last long enough to cause damage. So they don't escape errors, they kind of embrace them and try to deal with them instead, which is a very different perspective than trying to escape it at all costs. Part of this is also that success can lead to complacency, arrogance, satisfaction with too little focus on small errors. And I see this a lot in football organizations that can be better and more like these high reliability organizations in terms of this. The way that I work with this, I worked for 4 years with Dutch national teams, helping to prepare them for tournaments. This particular example is from the under-21 team preparing for the Euro in 2007. We talked about penalties before that tournament, and this was a slide that was up with those players, where the whole point was missing penalties is something that's natural. And I provided quotes from players who previously have been in these situations, talking about this as something that everyone does. In almost every penalty shootout, it's missed more than once. It's normal to miss a penalty. Nobody misses a penalty intentionally. It's obviously the coach's responsibility. He put me on the field. When I had that up, all the players laughed except the coach. He was not so pleased. And this is the picture that you can see. The guys took me back into the group as I walked back after I had missed. And that's something that we planned for in that tournament. We planned for missing. So when we miss a penalty, what do we do?